I don't want to overreact to him going to this baseball game, but I think that's a terrible look for Kawhi because he didn't go to any of the Spurs playoff games. To not go to a Spurs, even their home playoff games, even the home playoff games right after the head coach's wife tragically passes away. To not go ahead, see.
The only thing about that part is I know Kawhi was in communication with Coach Pop, and they had, well, Kawhi was going to come back if he was going to coach, but he knew that the coach wasn't going to come back, so that's when he decided to stay away. It was kind of agreed upon that he would continue to do his rehab.
And I had heard that as well. That if after the death of Pop's wife, that he was going to coach.
He was in communications with Coach Popovich.
And I understand that part of it. But if to not show up to one of those playoff games, even when the coach isn't going to be there, maybe even more of a reason to show up as a team leader, as the best guy on the team, when your season's on the line, even if you're not going to play, when you obviously can travel, that to me is, whether you agree or disagree with the decision, that to me is all the proof I need that he has mentally moved on from the Spurs as being a member of that basketball team.
Yeah, I think it's crazy, though, he can't go to the Dodgers game. If you're in Los Angeles, why can't I go to a sporting event? Why can't I go see the Dodgers play? Well, what am I supposed to do? Not do anything this summer because I didn't go to the playoff games? I'm not supposed to go to no sporting event when I would normally, in my routine, I would go to some baseball games. I would potentially go to other NBA playoff games. I don't think just because I missed the season, a great portion of the season and the playoffs, I'm not going to go anywhere socially. That has nothing to do with my decision, do I want to be in San Antonio or not?
Listen, I'm not saying he can't go to the games. What I am saying is the only, I thought, plausible rationale that could square the circle of Kawhi wants to be with the Spurs and Kawhi isn't at these playoff games is the rehab in New York is so intensive he has to stay there. And if he is just chilling in Los Angeles, I'm not judging him for going to the game. It's just, to me, further evidence that he has decided, I'm not on the Spurs anymore.
Well, the evidence has been there. It's just a matter of when people wanted to look at it or not. So now, because he's going to a baseball game, you're like, wow.
Well, I've been saying that I thought he was going. I just think it's further evidence of it. But go ahead.
Yeah, listen, I get a little upset when people in sports are people who are famous that now they can't do other stuff that normal people can do. If a normal person can go to a baseball game, well, damn, I can go to a baseball game. Kawhi going to a baseball game in L.A., it's not a bad look for him, and it's not sending some type of message that he's gone from San Antonio or not, all right? Their relationship and what happened, him being misdiagnosed by San Antonio, all right, that's not going to go away. All right, they're not going to be able to change that anytime soon.
What do you think is going to happen next year? Do you still, I mean, I know you have gone sort of back and forth on whether he comes back or not. So him going to a Dodgers game, none of that factors into where you are with where Kawhi ends up next year.
Okay, first, I have not gone back and forth as far as is Kawhi going to stay in San Antonio or is he going to leave? The potential of him leaving San Antonio, that's real, all right? That's a real thing. Kawhi being upset at the management there at San Antonio, that's a real thing. People in Kawhi's group that want him to leave San Antonio, that's a real thing. That got nothing to do with Chris Carter.
Sure.
Now, I just know it's hard to turn down that max contract.
They can offer him, so the audience understands, they can offer him $219 million. No other team can offer more than around $140 million. It's a drastic sum of money he would have to turn down. And that's why the misdiagnosis part of this has to be part of the math you do. Because if the rationale or the thought initially was Kawhi wants to leave San Antonio so he can get a richer shoe deal.
No, that wasn't he would have never, if he wouldn't have been injured, he would have never approached ever leaving. That thought wouldn't have come in his head.
Okay, so that's critical that people understand because you cannot make up, Kawhi Leonard cannot make up the money. If it's about a shoe deal, that means it's about money. And no shoe deal is going to make up the money that he would be leaving on the table by leaving San Antonio. It would have to be about more than that. Tell me if you think this is fair. Not just a misdiagnosis, but then a pressure to come back and play. some of the things Parker and Ginobili said that our friend Steven Jackson thinks they would only say with the consent from Greg Popovich, maybe an unfair representation in Kawhi's eyes of what he was really going through?
I think it has a big deal to do, zero to do with the players, all right, because they're not going to be around there. They're not players that are part of San Antonio's future. Now, thinking that Kawhi took some message, that it was an indirect message from Popovich, I don't believe Kawhi is looking at it that way. But it's a real situation. Man, how many superstars, am I going to be able to get another superstar to come to San Antonio? That's real. And I believe that and the injury led to Kawhi believe, is this the best place for my basketball future, which led us to where we are right now.
If it's about the money, if this whole thing was about money, that's where you're going to get the most money, is by staying in San Antonio. He has shown zero, in my opinion, he has shown zero signs of committing to San Antonio, of wanting to be on this Spurs team, of wanting to play for the Spurs.
And when it comes to the max contract and the money, it should be noted, because of the way things have gone, I'm not as certain that it's a foregone conclusion that they offer him the full max contract, that they even put that in front of him. You also have to keep in mind the owners.
If they do that, then he's definitely going to leave.
Well, but you got to keep in mind this part of it, and no one's talked about this. The owner of the Spurs and his wife got a divorce. And I bring that up because the financial ramifications of that, as the Peter Holt, and I think it's Juliana Holt, she's now running, like, it's an odd situation there. And we've seen this in sports before, where there's a divorce at the ownership level, what that does for the individual finances. A team like San Antonio that's not in a super lucrative market.
The team is concerned about the difference in that 70 to 80 million they would have to pay. So the divorce might play a role. So it's not just Kawhi, it's also the organization. But if the organization decides to do that, divorce or no divorce, they need Kawhi. They need to offer him the max. If they don't, there's a great probability he won't be there.
All right, let's take a break. Coming up, the Cavs live and die by LeBron James, but is that a sustainable